Hello, you are watching our weekly program here on TVR World Highlights, as we bring you on a weekly basis a recap of news that made headlines from around the globe. And to begin our first segment of the day, we are taking you to Gaza to see the humanitarian aids organized by United Nations. I'm Rahmat Idris. This is World Highlights. In our first segment, the United Nations has called for the immediate restoration of humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza after Israel halted the entry of relief supplies. Meanwhile, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati said the Egyptian Gaza reconstruction plan that ensures Palestinians remain in their land is ready and will be presented to the Emergency Arab Summit on March the 4th. Let's have a look.
In response, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, through his spokesperson, issued a statement on Sunday, urging all parties to make every effort to prevent a return to hostilities in the war-torn Palestinian enclave. He called for humanitarian aid to flow back into Gaza immediately and the release of all hostages. Meanwhile, UN Under-Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator Tom Fletcher said in a social media post that UN relief personnel and supplies must be granted access to Gaza to deliver vital life-saving aid. Fletcher also underscored the need to uphold the ceasefire agreement to prevent further deterioration of the humanitarian crisis in the region. Meanwhile, the Egyptian counter-reconstruction plan, according to Abdelati, will not be purely Egyptian or Arab, but will gain international support and funding to ensure its successful implementation. Asked about the second phase of the ceasefire deal, Abdelati said Egypt will continue its intensive efforts to ensure the ceasefire is maintained and negotiations for the second phase can begin. He stressed the importance of safely executing the ceasefire agreement signed in January, emphasizing its commitment to ensuring its proper implementation. Abdelati said that following the Emergency Arab Summit, there will be an urgent ministerial meeting in Saudi Arabia for the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, where foreign ministers will push for the summit outcomes to be presented globally. From Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday, February 27, that his government had good talks on Gaza and that he thought it was coming up with solutions to problems in the Middle East. Trump made the comments at a joint White House press conference with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer when he was asked whether Phase 2 of the ceasefire in Gaza would come to fruition. In Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel has accepted a U.S. plan to extend the ceasefire in Gaza by 50 days, but said Hamas has rejected the plan, adding their demands for a permanent ceasefire are unacceptable. Netanyahu added that Israel's decision to suspend aid entering the Gaza Strip was due to Hamas stealing the supplies. The truce by U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, is for the Ramadan and Passover periods, and if agreed, would halt fighting until the end of the Ramadan fasting period around March 31st and the Jewish Passover holiday around April 20th. Hamas said it was committed to the originally agreed ceasefire that had been scheduled to move into a second phase, with negotiations aimed at a permanent end to the war, and it has rejected the idea of a temporary extension to the 42-day truce. From Gaza, the new academic year began in Gaza in late February for primary and secondary schools amid the fragile Israel-Hamas ceasefire. But the education system still faces challenges due to destruction of infrastructure and teaching staff shortage caused by the Israel's relentless bombardment over the past more than 1 year. On the early morning on Friday, Muhammad Farhan, who had been fleeing with his family to find safety from the war and have just returned to Gaza City, brought his daughter Jumana to a school for admission. Before Jumana, more than 300 other children had completed re-enrollment in school, but the figure was less than half of the total number of students before the outbreak of the latest round of conflict on October 7, 2023. Students said they feel happy to return to the classroom. Many schools which were used as shelters during the bloody conflict have started to admit students again. However, government agencies, schools, and students still face challenges in the recovery process.
Next up, we're bringing you the update on conversations of peace over in Ukraine. We'll be right back. Stay with us right here on World Highlights. Thank you for staying with us on this week's editions of World Highlights here on TV Our World, coming to you from Jakarta, Indonesia. Will the peace talk resume between Ukraine, US, and most importantly, Russia? We'll bring you the details in the next segment. President Donald Trump met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House to sign a minerals deal before an argument between them broke out. Meanwhile, several world leaders came out in support of Ukraine after a dramatic clash between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump at a White House meeting.
The meeting between Trump and Zelensky ended in disaster after the two leaders traded verbal blows before the world's media over the war with Russia. President Donald Trump sees the minerals deals as America's way of earning back some of the money it has given to Ukraine in the form of financial aid and weaponry to help fight Russia, which invaded 3 years ago. Ukraine has deposits of 22 of the 50 minerals classified as critical by the U.S. government and has significant deposits of lithium, graphite, titanium, uranium used to generate nuclear power, alongside rare earth elements according to Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, or BMI, a London-based specialist information provider for the supply chain of lithium-ion batteries used in electric vehicles.
I didn't align myself with both of them.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude to the American people after his clash with U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance earlier. Zelensky's meeting with Trump ended in disaster after the two leaders traded verbal blows before the world's media at the White House over the war with Russia. The visit by Zelensky was designed to help Ukraine convince the United States not to side with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who ordered the invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. Instead, the Ukrainian leader disagreed sharply with Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance over the conflict, underlining how the change of administration in Washington has undermined Kyiv's attempts to maintain Western support for its war effort. Still from Washington, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky left the White House without signing a deal to give the United States access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. That followed the collapse of talks with President Donald Trump in the Oval Office. They clashed during the angry meeting, where Trump noted that the United States could not provide security guarantees to Ukraine as demanded by Zelensky. Trump said Zelensky was not thankful for U.S. support and accused him of gambling with World War III. They canceled the scheduled joint press conference. French President Emmanuel Macron said in a post on social media website X that they were right to help Ukraine and sanction Russia 3 years ago and to keep doing so. By they, Macron means the Americans, the Europeans, the Canadians, the Japanese, and many others. In their own posts on the platform, leaders from countries such as Canada, Latvia, and Denmark said they stood with Ukraine. Zelensky had seen the meeting in the Oval Office as an opportunity to convince the United States not to side with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who ordered the invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. Instead, Trump and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance laid into Zelensky, saying he showed disrespect, driving relations with Kyiv's most important wartime ally to a new low. From Moscow, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Sunday praised U.S. President Donald Trump's common sense aimed to end the war in Ukraine, but accused the European powers, which have rallied around Kyiv, of seeking to prolong the conflict. Lavrov said the United States still wanted to be the world's most powerful country, and that Washington and Moscow would never see eye to eye on everything, that they had agreed to be pragmatic when interests coincided. Lavrov also dismissed European ideas for sending in a contingent of European peacekeepers and said Russia had not trust in Ukraine after the collapse of the Minsk agreements, which were designed to end a separatist war by Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine. Europeans, Lavrov said, could not explain what rights Russian speakers would have under the European peacekeeper plans, adding that Russia did not like the idea of Europeans propping up Zelensky.
The joy of Ramadan is here for the world to rejoice in. We bring you the details when we return in just a few minutes. Stay with us on TV Our World. And you are still watching World Highlights here on TV Our World from Jakarta, Indonesia. Muslims around the globe this week have started to observe the fasting month, the holy month of Ramadan. We'll bring you a series report in the next segment. And in our third segment for this week, we'll take you to see how Muslims across the world performs fasting on the holy month of Ramadan. Let's take a look.
The holy month of Ramadan will begin on Saturday, March 1st for Indonesia's Muslims, which make up about 87% of its over 280 million population. Muslims worldwide observe Ramadan, during which many abstain from eating and drinking during daylight hours. And also, Pakistani Muslims flock to mosques to offer Tarawih, special Ramadan prayers ahead of the first day of fasting, in country's biggest city, Karachi, late on Saturday, March 1st. In Pakistan, mosques are decorated brightly during Ramadan. After prayer, people shop for last-minute food items for zuhur or meal before fasting another day during Ramadan. Pakistan is a predominantly Muslim country where more than 90% of its over 240 million people practice Islam, and most of them fast during the holy month. Meanwhile, markets in Jerusalem and the West Bank witnessed less buyers ahead of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan amid rising tensions in the region. Unlike previous years, the markets were unpacked and usual decorations and lightings around the cities have not been put up. Vendors also complained about lack of sales, saying that Israeli checkpoints and operation in the West Bank, as well as the political situation in the country, are affecting the market. In Jerusalem, the Waqf and Al-Aqsa Mosque Affairs Department has installed covers in Al-Aqsa Mosque courtyards to protect worshippers from the rain and winter weather. From Cairo, Egypt, as Ramadan approaches, Cairo's Saida Zainab market is buzzing with shoppers looking for festive decorations and essential ingredients for the Muslim holy fasting month. The market, located near the historic Saida Zainab and Al Hussein mosques, is a popular hub for Egyptians shopping for Ramadan necessities. From lanterns to dates, juices, nuts, and key ingredients for traditional meals. In Kalubia, many Syrians residing in Egypt gather at Al Nofra Park in Egypt's Obor city in Kalubia, northeastern Cairo, to celebrate a Syrian tradition called Bagriza, a custom long practiced by the people of Damascus. Families and neighbors come together in open air before the start of Ramadan to share a meal and enjoy each other's company before they devote themselves to worship during the fasting month. This tradition was carried to Egypt by Damascus who were forced to leave Syria at the start of the war. Over time, it has become a cherished ritual for them in their new home. Takriza is typically held in public places, like Al Rabwa back in Damascus, and features a communal feast with a variety of dishes. Yusri al-Jilani, a Damascene living in Egypt, says they continue to uphold this tradition with fellow Syrians, even while abroad, hoping one day to celebrate it in Syria, where it carries a deeper meaning. This year of freedom and the rule of law. Beyond being a Damascene heritage, Takriza holds significance for fostering social connections and reviving diverse culinary traditions. Khalifa Al-Kuwari, a Qatari citizen, describes the atmosphere as very beautiful, expressing gratitude for the cool weather and the welcoming shops. He adds, God willing, it will be a year of goodness and best wishes. The market is filled with the sights of decorative vehicle carts and the sounds of music, creating a festive environment that draws both locals and visitors. The traditional firing of the Iftar cannon by Qatari armed forces at the Old Doha port area marks the breaking of the fast, a moment eagerly anticipated by onlookers. Despite the festive atmosphere, there is a shared hope for peace in the region, particularly in Gaza, where a ceasefire has brought some relief. A Qatari resident originally from Jenin expresses a heartfelt wish for peace and victory for the people of Gaza and Palestine during this holy month.
And last week also took notes of the biggest night for movies, the 97th Academy Awards or the Oscars. We bring you all the winners and the losers in the next segment. Stay with us. And you are still watching this week's edition of World Highlights here on TV Our World. Anora took the top prize for the 97th Academy Awards, while Mikey Madison's and Adrian Brody also took the triumph. We have the details up next. And in our last segment, Ariana Grande, Ray, and Queen Latifah were among the stars who performed at the 97th Academy Awards on Sunday, March the 2nd evening, Los Angeles time at the Dolby Theater. And Anora dominated by winning 5 trophies at the event.
Wicked actors Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande opened the show with a medley of songs from The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz, and Wicked. They closed their performance with a rendition of Defying Gravity, which received a standing ovation from the audience. Later in the show, Margaret Qualley, Blackpink's Lisa, Doja Cat, and Ray participated in a James Bond segment, performing songs from the franchise in tribute to outgoing producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. Renowned music composer and producer Quincy Jones, who died in November 2024, aged 91, was also honored with a performance by Oscar nominee Queen Latifah. Meanwhile, Anora dominated by winning 5 trophies at the event. 4 major category awards were mostly claimed by Anora, including Best Picture, Best Director for Sean Baker, and Best Actress for Mikey Madison. Here is the complete list of the 97th Academy Award winners.
And that report brings us to the conclusion of this week's editions of World Highlights here on TV Our World. Do join us again next week at the same time. From Jakarta, Indonesia, I'm Rahmat Idris. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.